All right, in lesson 3, we're going to focus on student success. So let's jump right in. To set up everyone for success, we have to realize that everyone is different, right? So our approach and our reaction to students dealing with behavior and the learning it's got to be different, right? And the reason why we do this is because the 20th century model of learning made us believe that all students are the same and they're going to learn the same, right? With no child left behind. We basically were like, every kid is going to excel 100%. They're going to pass this quote unquote test that they had. And that wasn't the case. I have this great picture here because I want you to kind of focus in on it, and I'll blow it up a little bit. But you can see that in the old model of learning, we found that learning was the variable and timing was the constant, right? Because we wanted students to be able to learn this information in 9 months. And if they didn't, then they weren't going to really make an impact. But you have to look, in order to accelerate learning, we have to make sure that learning is the constant and timing is the variable. So think about that when it comes to behavior. Some students are not going to, quote unquote, act right, how some people put it, the first or second time, right? It's going to take some time for them to learn the skill and for it to become habit, right? So in the fourth lesson, or excuse me, the fourth section, we're going to talk about habits because oftentimes we really don't think how habits affect our behavior. And so we're going to kind of go through some of that information and do a good deep dive. But just remember that, look, learning is the constant and timing is the variable. Sometimes it takes students a little bit longer to do things that we want them to be able to do. But in the end, it's going to benefit them if we stay consistent. And that's what the next thing is, that consistency and teamwork are essential ingredients for successful students, right? So they need that. Even if we know that it's not working the first 2-3 days, sometimes we want to dump something after, it's not working the first 3 days. You all look, it may take a couple of weeks. And I'm not saying not to hold students accountable, but if you're consistent with what you're doing, then you're going to help that child know and understand that, listen, I mean business in my classroom and I want you to be successful and I'll support you in any way, but I still need you. If every time you need to raise your hand in order to be called on, then that's the standard and that's the consistent nature that we're going to have so that you can be successful. Listen, and this is where the support from the counselor, if you have the ability to have one, really comes into play because students at the end of the day have to be their own risk managers, right? That self-management, which is really hard, even for us as adults. The self-management is key, right? And there's several different steps that go into that for them to be able to be their own risk managers and self-management. But just knowing that as a central part of that success for that student. And finally, starting each day new. You all, I have a thing that I really try to implement every day, and it's starting each day with a clean slate. There's no way that a child or even a young adult will feel like they're going to be a success when we hold grudges against them. And sometimes, even if they've done something preposterous to us, we have to start each day new. I'm not saying forget what they did, but our reactions to them, if they feel like or they see that we don't too much care for them because they keep disrupting our classroom, then how are they going to feel like they're going to actually be successful? Well, they're not. So we have to start each day new. So let me give you a quick example here. If a student was disruptive yesterday and they came to your classroom, I would start with this. Hey, listen, Anthony, I know you were disruptive yesterday, but we're going to have a great day, all right? We're going to have a great day because we're going to try our best to do what we can, right? Yesterday was forgotten. I know you're disruptive, but today let's try to do our best. Boom. You're starting that day with a clean slate. You're starting that day new and allowing that student to be able to feel that they're going to be successful. Now, what's not good is a student coming in, now you acted up yesterday. You better not do that mess again today. I'm not putting up with it. So right there, you show them that, well, I might as well, because you don't care, right? So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Again, there's so many different variables to that. But if we overall can start each day new in a clean slate, then you're going to give that student the feeling that, you know what, I can be successful in that classroom. The last thing really about providing student success is providing choice and trust. Listen, sometimes when we're dealing with students, they're in crisis mode. And there's no way that we can even learn or provide direction when we're in crisis mode. I mean, whether often, you know what happens when somebody is in crisis mode like that, we try to tell them, go sit down, pick that up, do these things. And listen, you all, our natural brains cannot do that. We have to come down first from that high, from that aggression, and then we'll be able to respond appropriately. But this is part of those habits. If students are in that fight or flight mode, there's no way we're gonna do that, right? And again, that's that fight or flight mode. I want to get into the health stuff, but that cortisol puts us they call it our mammalian brain, right? It takes over. And so we're just in that survival mode. And so if we try to tell someone several things to do at one time, yes, you have to address them calming down. And sometimes it takes 5 or 7 minutes. A good key that I've learned over the years is, hey, you know what? Water actually helps. If you give somebody water and they drink it, it helps to actually help the body to kind of slow down. Anyway, but a lot of times when we are upset, maybe a child has or a student has made us upset, that's fear comes out of us. And a fear in a sense of powerlessness often fuel aggression, right? So students want to save face, but adults do too as well. So let's say a student has made you upset. Really, that's a point of fear in us that we feel like we're going to lose power. And that's where we go into these power struggles with students back and forth because, we don't want to feel like we're less than. That child may call us out of our name, said something to us. And so part of that is our fear of not being able to control the classroom. So I want you to know, look, it's a natural occurrence, but we have to make sure that we don't allow fear and that sense of powerlessness to overtake us, because then we'll do things that we really shouldn't do. And the last thing here is that trust and opportunities for choice can counteract that fear and sense of powerlessness. So when I said in lesson 2 that you should have options, this is a great time to be able to do that. Let's say, for example, a student's being disruptive, right? You should already pre-plan 2 options that you want them to do. Listen, you can either do your work now or you can do it during recess if you're in elementary school. For example, if a student is always getting up, have a plan. Like, what if a student doesn't like to sit in their chair, right? Maybe they like to stand. Have a choice. Listen, either you can stand here or sit there, right? But having a choice when you're actually going, when a student is disruptive, helps to let them feel like they're in power. But guess what? You know what? You've already decided ahead of time that there's choices that you're already going to give the child that you're okay and comfortable with, that you will give them some of that power, and then you don't feel like you have to go back and forth with them. And again, it's not in every situation, but when you can give choices because more than likely they're going to commit to it. This is lesson 3. We'll go to lesson 4 and talk more about those individual needs.